Hello, I'm Ajahn Sona, and this is our regular question and answer from Birken Forest Monastery live stream. And we will take our first question. Please, Pia.
Ajahn, our first question is from the live feed. Ajahn, our first question is from the live feed from AS in Florida, United States. Wishing you peace and happiness. Does the Buddha say anything about the wisdom of laughter and playfulness, even in times of illness and other difficult times at any age?
I think that playfulness, if it's a sense of lightness of heart, and it's done in a not a silly type of attitude. I think lightness of heart is natural, is one of the enlightenment factors in a sense, joy. And quite often the monks at the time of the Buddha were described as having serene expressions on their face and seemingly not taking things too seriously. However, laughter, like in lay life, perhaps laughter might be a important element in family life and just with friends and so forth. But for monastics, it is somewhat discouraged, especially in public. So there is a little rule that monks should not go laughing loudly in the inhabited areas. So I just laughed and smiled. So I think that the Buddha was talking about various kinds of, there's shallow laughters. There's a dozen types of laughter, aren't there? There are some that are very crude, or one is laughing with a crude mind, or even some people laugh at cruel acts. So it depends on the type of laughter, what the motivation for the laughter is, and the motivation for the playfulness. Playfulness might also just be creativity, and that's, in a sense, important to the creative process. And so even monks have to be creative. We have to be creative with Dhamma. If you look at the teachings of the Buddha themselves and the recorded sayings, you'll see that he was very creative, especially with what we might call metaphors or similes. So the use of language. And sometimes he was actually, in a sense, playful with things. He would more or less produce clickbait. He would say something that at first was a bit shocking, and then he would say, but this means this, and that meant this. So it would catch your attention, and then he would explain the meaning of it. So there is obvious creativity and lightheartedness, but not all playfulness and all laughter is of the right character. So you have to discriminate which laughter are you talking about, which playfulness are you talking about, in order to have a reasonable presentation of this. Yeah.
Our next question is from Kenton in Toledo, Ohio, United States. Greetings, Ajahn Sona and friends at Birken. I intend on pursuing ordination as an anagarika in the coming months. To what extent should I, quote, tie up loose ends, unquote, with those from my past before moving into the monastic life? Is it recommended to right past wrongs, misdeeds of body, speech, mind, past transgressions, or is this unnecessarily digging up my past karma?
Well, it may or may not be digging up your past karma, but there's no obligation to go and fix everything with everybody. It's, if you feel like it and you think somebody's receptive to it. But sometimes this kind of wrapping up things it's part of your sense of the drama of this. For you, it's a very important, world-changing decision. You are exiting the normal world, the world of the family life and friends and entertainment and all these things. So it's a profound movement, but the people around you don't necessarily understand that. They don't really know what monks are, and etc. So quite often what you understand and which is important is lost on them. So I would not concern myself too much with it. Quite often some people go off to become monastics, and only later on, 2 years later, somebody finds out that so-and-so is a monk now. And they think, wow, I didn't know about that. They still don't know what a monk is, but sometimes it actually makes an impression on them, and it improves their life. They start to get interested in these things. However, as I say, you don't have the obligation of explaining yourself to everybody. There is a nice saying which can relieve a lot of people of duress, which is never complain and never explain. You don't have to go through the world having everybody understand you. It's quite often a waste of your own energies and time. Some people are not capable ever of understanding you. They don't understand themselves, therefore they are not capable of understanding others. Others who are very wise understand you whether you talk to them about it or not. And so you don't have to feel it as an obligation or something impossible to do. And you might find some frustrations with some people might be dismissive, critical of you even, etc. So you do not need that. You are departing on your own free will and looking forward to the beautiful possibilities of the monastic life. And you're going out to be an anagarika. So this is the first stage before ordination, before becoming a novice, and before higher ordination. One becomes this anagarika, which means homeless. One steps into the homeless life. And yet not all, you're not obliged to give all your possessions away, all your money away, or any of these things, because that is a testing period. It's a preliminary period to find out whether you are actually suitable for this life as a Buddhist monk. And you may change your mind, and the monastic sangha may decide that it's not timely for you. So these are some of the considerations, and you may end up back in the household life, and you've told everybody that you're going off to be a monk, and now you change your mind, etc. So it's just your private business, and it's your concern, and it's not everybody else's. So you don't have to explain yourself, and you don't have to obligate yourself to anybody else's judgments about these matters.
Our next question is from the live feed from John in Toronto, Canada. Are all monks expected to become teachers, speaker figures? This seems like an impossible task for some. If not, how do these monks spend the latter part of their monastic life?
Indeed, monks are not obligated to be teachers or public speakers. Not all monks are capable of that. Some do not have the gift of gab. They don't have the knowledge of Dhamma, the knowledge of the texts, nor do they have maybe deep personal experience. And so they are invited to continue their practice, but not necessarily invited by the Sangha to be teachers of others. Depends on the personality. So not all monks are, not all monks are good public speakers or reliable teachers. So that they support the Sangha. They have duties within the Sangha, the basic obligations to others in the Sangha. And they continue to practice and live probably in a community with qualified teachers who do know the Dhamma and practice. And they will continue their practice. And in some ways, it's a bit of a blessing not to have to give public talks. I give a lot of public talks, and there is a certain burden to that. It's not, it requires organizing material in your head ahead of time and going places and arranging things. It takes up time and effort. And the Buddha was clear that the priority in life is to keep your practice up. That's why you became a monk. But if you have the personality type, if you have enough capacity to deliver a fluent talk, etc., in an organized fashion, then you can do this. But the Buddha would even caution that monks, don't take too much time from your obligation to practice. That's your first priority. Even for monks who are quite capable of giving talks and so forth. So it is freeing to know that your real obligation as a monk is simply to do your spiritual practice. And so for the monks who aren't teaching, etc., they might be involved in physical activities of the monastery, building and maintaining, and accompanying sometimes teachers, arranging requisites and so forth for their teachers. There are a number of different offices within a monastery, and one takes one's turn as the storehouse keeper, as the bell ringer, as the supervisor of work projects, perhaps an attendant to senior monks, helping them in their regular daily activities. If they are teachers, then they don't have time for some tasks. Even washing the robes for the senior monk is part of the duties of junior monks. So it's quite an elaborate, well laid out, orderly structure. All of these duties and characteristics are quite well explained in the early discourses of the Buddha, and also what's called the Vinaya, which is the rules of conduct for monks. And they are exquisitely detailed, and including all of the various duties that each monk has and the various types of practices that monks can do. Okay, so let's go on to the next question.
Our next question is from Michael in Los Angeles, California, United States. When I notice delight developing in my breath meditation, a fear and dread reflex tends to ruin it. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly why. I have feared hurting myself through meditation, and I have feared that fear itself will forever taint my practice, but this is a senseless reflex. How to navigate past this? I'm hoping that by repeatedly getting to the point where this happens, I will believe it less and find a way to move forward.
One phrase that the Buddha used with breath meditation, he said, this, with meditation itself, which can and should produce joy in certain mental levels of the concentration, is that this is a blameless endeavor, a blameless activity, not to be feared. So there's nothing to be feared in it. It's blameless and not to be feared. It's not problematic. It tends to a better and greater well-being, and cultivation of the mind is strengthened through these practices. So there is nothing to be feared in it. However, if you brought a question like that to me in an interview, which is what I do in the monastery, I have people coming and meditating for periods of time, lay people, and they come to me with exactly those kind of questions. I would go into it more deeply with you. I'd ask you about your life. I'd ask you about I would inquire into your personality Is there any trauma in your past? Because what happens is that in meditation sometimes things that have been suppressed or that you've distracted yourself well up. And that might be the fear. It's not the delight that you're afraid of. It's that when you aren't being distracted or suppressing things, certain types of memories and so forth can well up very suddenly and that are quite hard to manage. And that's the fear that people have. People have that fear in meditation when they're not distracting themselves and there's no filter or suppression of memories that things burst into consciousness. So I would have to inquire, that might not be the case for you, but that would be the type of questions that I would ask you. And we would inquire, what is the basic reasons behind this? Because there are sometimes matters that you need to deal with before going on with that.
Our next question is from the live feed from Bob in Texas, United States. How do Buddhists deal with deep, almost overwhelming depression and a sense of hopelessness?
Well, Buddhism itself is a very, very powerful, and it is medicine for such states as depression, hopelessness. And it's somewhat strange because the remedy for that is strangely facing reality. Sometimes the types of thoughts that one has which makes things hopeless are actually the facts of life. You die, and everything is uncertain and out of control. And when you gaze out upon the world, you find humans acting in an inhuman way. The cruelty and madness abound, etc. So these kind of things do produce depression, a sense of hopelessness in people. But the Buddha says this is, in fact, the first noble truth is suffering, and not to seek a refuge within things that are not stable and worthy of giving you refuge, and to seek a refuge within the mind itself. And the mind becomes detached from the situations in the world. And it is by understanding that you have choices that you can make about how you feel and what you think. So this is where all the focus is not in fixing the world or reacting to the world. It is looking into yourself and making decisions about feelings that you will tolerate and feelings which you will not tolerate, feelings which you will remove and feelings which you will maintain and cultivate. So if you have heard Buddhism is about just accepting things, it is not. Especially of the inner world. We accept the facts of the universe. We accept the reality of whatever is going on the planet. We accept whatever, if it's raining, we accept it's raining. What we don't accept, and what we are very determined to change, is the type of thinking and feeling that occur within us. Many things are unskillful, and they need to be stopped and removed and replaced. And other things need to be brought into existence, sustained and strengthened. And this is what we call right effort. So depression and hopelessness are simply lack of skill and unawareness of what it is to do, to have right effort. And so you might find it very refreshing to watch my talks on this YouTube channel on right effort. I've gone to great extent to describe this. Other elements of the mind, like mindfulness, are a support for right effort. And what that does is eliminate depression, hopelessness, And of course, part of depression is often self-criticism and self-loathing as well. It eliminates that. It eliminates both outwards and inwards these negative emotions of greed and hatred and various delusions. So in the midst of this very world, without improving it one iota, we can walk freely and lightly with great mental and emotional health. And so discover this, because no pill in the world actually cures depression, just like no pill in the world cures racism or discrimination or any of these things. It's a complex. It's about how we view the world, and it's only by changing our view of ourselves and the world that such things as depression, hatred, all of these things are lifted. It can't be done any other way. So it is primarily through right view, a right view of reality and a right view about your role and yourself, that such emotions are transformed, changed, and you are freed from these things. Yeah.
Our next question is from Ali in White Plains, New York, United States. Dear Ajahn, my mind's major hindrance seems to be restlessness. It is a persistent, quote, why. The why comes up first, and then it tries to find something to attach to, just to keep my mind churning. I get brief respite through serenity, samadhi meditation, but the whys are just camped outside at the castle gates, looking for any cracks in the walls. Will the invaders eventually go away if I keep practicing samadhi?
Yes, the restlessness of the mind, that's one of the 5 hindrances. So it's the opposite of heavy dullness and sloth. It's a little bit of agitated restlessness. And it is, by the way, natural. So people are, when they come to try to meditate, they're quite often surprised by their own inability to control their mind. Their mind's nature seems to be restless and moving. And that is natural. It is the nature of all people's minds. And to overcome it is supernatural. So you're on a supernatural quest to overcome your restlessness, because most people, it never occurs to them that it's something to be overcome. For most people, it's something to be obeyed. So they obey their restlessness. They look for distractions. They look for any way out of it. So the simile the Buddha gives to this sort of agitated restlessness is that it is as somebody who is a servant to a cruel master, who every time they want to sit down and take a rest, the master gives them a new task. And then to get over this restlessness and find some stillness and peace is like being freed from this cruel master who never lets you rest. And that is devoutly to be wished for. And so one should continue to practice these serenity meditations. And you need to, though, be aware that if you condition yourself by distracting yourself, answering all these why questions, you will maintain that sense of restlessness. And it's only by facing up to this and not acting on the restless message that eventually it weakens. So instead of just answering the restlessness by distracting yourself, you need to face it until your mind settles down into peace. And there's quite a bit of a desert to cross that's quite it's very hard to sit with restlessness, sit through it. But if you do long enough and you reduce your sensory stimulation around you, eventually you come across that difficult period and you find yourself at peace. This peace is not permanent. It's something that you arrange, and it's quite wonderful when you get to it. But if you don't guard it and cherish it and keep it and maintain it, then it can slip away on you. And then it seems like it's a mile away. You have to go back across the desert to get it. So peace is a very precious thing. Serenity is a very precious thing. You have to pay a price to get to it, and it's a bit like drying out from an addiction. The withdrawal from your normal distractions is a bit painful, but well worth it. And use the voice of others to help you get there. So being talked into a state of serenity and calm is very good. Read some suttas to help you get there, and then let go of the words and the voice and just abide in that for as long as you can. Make a map of how you got there as well. When you get to serenity and stillness and quiet, silence, write down, because you will forget, write down how you got there, all the preliminary steps. Maybe you weren't in association with some characters in your life, some people in your life that tend to cause disturbance, or some sort of activities in your life that keep you in a restless state. So note what has to go, what has to go in order for you to get to this serene state. And then keep those notes, because it's like finding yourself, you have discovered a beautiful grove in the mountains just by accident. Make notes about how to get back there, so when you have an opportunity, you can go back there quickly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Our next question is from the live feed from Benjamin in Massachusetts, United States. Dear Ajahn, I want to practice walking meditation. Any suggestions for a beginner?
Yes, walking meditation is praised by the Buddha, and the monks are told there are many benefits to walking meditation. And you'll find in Buddhist schools, there are all kinds of very deliberate techniques, slow motion walking, dividing your step up into 5 different parts. There's even rapid walking. Some of these Zen schools go from almost running around the room to super slow motion. You'll find in some of the Vipassana schools of super slow motion walking. The Buddha himself said nothing about that, did not describe any particular technique for walking meditation. He primarily said it was good for your body. It's good for digestion. It's good to help you reawaken if you're sleepy. It's good to energize you. It's good to keep you in shape for walking. So walking keeps you in shape for walking. In fact, it keeps you in shape for life. And so there are the benefits that the Buddha describe are quite a bit, almost like a little bit of an exercise regime, and no particular technique. And so, but he does say that if you can establish some serenity and focus while walking, it is particularly long-lived. And the reason why is that walking is quite conditional. You have to watch where you're walking and decide how fast to walk, etc. But so usually sitting meditation is the standard, because there are less conditions to distract you, so your mind has an optimal opportunity to get concentrated. But if you can concentrate yourself in walking meditation, then it is strong and long-lasting and can continue in motion. So it has many benefits. How to do it? Primarily, it is that you're not going actually thinking, I'm getting exercise or something like this. You can maintain a theme while you're walking. You might cultivate the theme of loving kindness, goodwill for humanity and yourself, all beings and yourself. That's the Buddha does say that loving kindness may be maintained whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down. So you can obviously cultivate loving kindness while doing walking. You can also just stay with the body, and this is something I recommended. Instead of focusing maybe tightly on a subject, just stay feeling the experience of walking, and not trapping your mind at a very small focal point, but saying anywhere in this experience of walking is fine. Keep the mind anchored to the body, and just be there walking. So this is a form of cultivating sort of peaceful awareness and attention. And it refreshes the body. So it's also a good preliminary before sitting. Because when you sit down to meditate, if your mind is not settled, then your body becomes uncomfortable after a short period of time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then you want to shift postures and so forth. So if you can do walking meditation before sitting meditation, you can get your mind halfway there to serenity before you even sit down. And so it's likely that if you can enter a state of serenity sooner, then your body won't be so troublesome to you in sitting meditation. You can confine yourself to, say, a walking path of about 40 or 50 feet long, and just walk from one end to the other. And so you're not going anywhere. So you don't want this, it's not a goal-oriented process. Just walk back and forth. When you get to the end, stop, turn around, and just try to be there walking back and forth. Before the advent of television and so forth, entertainment, radio and things, people paced. So even in their houses, or if they were staying in a hotel room, they regularly would just walk back and forth across the room. It was a common way to sit and then pace across the room. So you'll find descriptions in the 19th century of people pacing. Sometimes they would hold their hands behind their back, the philosopher's posture of walking. And so this is quite natural to humans. It's a nice thing to do, pace back and forth. It's very congenial. And you can also experiment that it's when you feel sleepy or tired, it's perhaps best to walk a little faster. And when you start to feel serene and collected, then you will notice that naturally your pace slows down. You feel like walking slowly. It's a very enjoyable experience to walk slowly, but don't force it. Just naturally, as your mind becomes more peaceful, you feel at ease walking a little slower. And you may even, just at the end of your walk, you may stand still. And you might stand still for a few minutes, enjoying standing. So standing meditation is another posture. You can stand and sway side to side, close your eyes even, etc., and then turn around and walk in the other direction. So these are some suggestions for walking meditation.
Our next question is from the live feed from Jerry in Holly Springs, Georgia, United States. I have a friend who asks me to drive him to the liquor store. I don't have a good answer, so I have been doing it. What do you recommend?
Well, you're not encouraging him to drink. And if he does favors for you, it's all right to do favors for him, but you're not participating or encouraging him in that. That's his decision. But it's not immoral or ethically compromised to do that. I mean, I don't know whether you're being, whether he's manipulative of you, that puts demands, unfair demands, or you feel like, if he wanted to just go to the beach, I would be happy, but I don't like to take him to the liquor store, That's all right. It's his life. He has to make the decisions about his relationship to alcohol and drugs. So it's not ethically compromised, if that's what you mean by the question. I'm not too sure. If we were having a conversation, I would ask more questions about why you feel some dismay or resentment in taking him to the liquor store, aside from the ideas that he shouldn't be drinking, he shouldn't need to go to the liquor store so often. So that's, in brief, that's an answer.
Our next question is from Ludovic in Brossard, Quebec, Canada. The amount of time we can spend on practice and learning the Dhamma is limited in this life. I have kids. I realize I need to make some choices with what I can integrate from the Dhamma and set some priorities. There are the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the Five Aggregates, the Five Hindrances, Sila, the Five Precepts, Metta Sutta, the Seven Aids to Awakening. From all of these topics, what would be the priority order and the, quote, must keep?
The must keep, the basics for a lay life is, first of all, some form of regular generosity. So some form of service to others or sharing of resources with others. So that's something quite easy to do. I mean, just make a meal and have some friends over, or go to drop something off at the food bank. So that's the basics. The next is sila, which is your precepts. So the precepts need to be held in high regard. The five precepts, not non-killing, non-stealing, non-sexual misconduct, non-lying, and abstaining from intoxicants. These are the primary sila. So you're now generating positive energy by doing generosity, and you're keeping yourself out of trouble by abiding within the precepts. And also, by following the precepts, you also are a gift to others. So it's a form of generosity to others, that you're a person that they don't need to fear, that who won't be violent towards them or take their possessions away or deceive them, etc. So this is a gift. You become a gift to others, and this transforms your mind, and it makes you available to practice the last three factors of the path. So the first most important factors for the layperson is do some generosity, some form of charity, and be virtuous in your behavior. You may be quite swamped by duties and busyness and family, so you don't have time to be sitting still, etc. But if you do have time, then you take up the last three factors. You practice the inner life of observing whether you're experiencing the hindrances, dismissing them and replacing them with positive emotional states. Practicing perhaps the Brahma Viharas, the loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and patience as well. So in ordinary life can require patience, and to have patience can be a great blessing to the life, the demands of the ordinary life, and it is praised by the Buddha as one of the highest religious practices that you can be, to simply be a person with patience, who isn't straining under impatience all the time. So to be patient with your children, with your spouse, with the people at work, with the traffic. When you get stuck in the traffic jams, then you're a patient person in the midst of them. So this is what you can do. And then if you ever get an opportunity, then you can go on to sitting meditation. So this is the order of things for the lay person.
Our next question is from the live feed from Kathy in Indiana, United States. Could you please explain if there is a difference between reincarnation and rebirth? There's a lot of confusion about this amongst my Buddhist peers. Thank you.
Yeah, these two words, reincarnation and rebirth, are both English words. So they they have people attribute various meanings to them. What is important is that in some ideas about reincarnation, so it means that something from this life, an identity from this life, a kind of a soul, an unchangeable soul, jumps out of this body and jumps into the next body. Whereas, and that is the general theory of of soul in before the time of the Buddha, and even to present day, some Christian ideas have that the soul is a unchanging entity which leaves the body and goes to heaven, etc. So by the way, in Christianity, one dies and goes to heaven. That's a form of rebirth or reincarnation. One leaves this life and goes to another life. So virtually all of the religions have some form of continuation, which is a form of reincarnation. So what the Buddha is saying is that there isn't the idea of a soul which travels through time unchanged and then jumps out of this body into the next one is a wrong understanding and a very important mistake. It's a flow of activities, a process, which the last moment of consciousness of this life conditions the arising of the first moment of consciousness of the next life. So they're just a moment apart. But this moment doesn't go into is not what is transmitted into the next life. It merely provides the conditioning for the arising of the next moment. So some of the similes are of you take a candle and you light another candle with it. And then you take that candle and you light another candle with it. And then you light the next candle. And so that is more or less the idea of the Buddhists. You can see that a flame on a candle is a process. It's not a thing. And when you touch it to the next candle, the process, the heat, etc., conditions the rising of the flame in the next candle, but it is not the same flame, because the first candle is still here with its flame. It didn't go to the next candle. It provided conditions for the arising of a flame on the next candle, and that provides the next. So this is the way the Buddha is thinking about transmission. So in a sense, you aren't reborn. Information is passed along. In fact, in this life, every moment of this life, there is a kind of rebirth taking place, moment by moment by moment. But you are not, the 30-year-old is not the 7-year-old. The 8-year-old is not even the 7-year-old. You are not the person you were yesterday. You didn't go from yesterday into today. Some of the information from yesterday has gone, has departed. Some of the information has conditioned the person you are now. Some memories, some new learning, etc., have produce conditions which are blossoming now. So this is a flowing stream of process. But the Buddha is saying it doesn't simply cease at death. All of the processes which you are don't simply cease at death. They they continue, but not as an entity which jumps out of one body into the next unchanged. So that is now that's difficult for some people to understand, but those similes of lighting a candle, passing the flame along is one way of understanding it. Another way is in olden times, when you wrote a letter or something, you had a ring with an image on it, and you put it in molten wax. You put it into molten wax, which would transfer the image, but the ring itself is not transferred. Just the image is transferred onto the wax seal of the document. So a lot of the information is transferred, but nothing physical goes from the ring to the image. So that's another way of thinking about what we would say rebirth. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Our next question is from the live feed from Pecky Peck. What advice would you give someone who had samadhi experiences early in their practice, but who is having a lot of difficulty getting them back?
This does happen. Sometimes we call that beginner's luck. So sometimes people come to a retreat and they actually experience jhana the first time. I mean, part of it is they don't have opinions about it, and the conditions are available and they get it. But then they don't know how they got it. They don't know how they found this magic place. They don't make a good map of it. So you lost your map. So this is, the Buddha gives this simile of cattle have wandered around on the range and they found this beautiful pond and a very nice shady place. And then they hear the cowherd ringing a bell, calling them in for the evening, and they go. And the next day they think, let's go back to that place. But they can't remember where it is because they didn't pay attention to where it was. So this happens even if you're a hiker in the forest, you find these magic places, and then next year you want to go back there, but you can't remember where the paths were. You can't find it again because you didn't make a careful map of how to get there. So that's the thing is, now you're going to have to go and find the map to jhana. You didn't make a personal map, so now you're going to have to go get the general instructions how to get to jhana. What are the causes that you need to put in order to arrive there? Because you don't arrive at jhana by trying. You don't arrive by wishing or gritting your teeth. You arrive there because you have put in the preliminary causes for this. And the preliminary causes are primarily a reduction of the sensory surroundings and your attention to the sensory surroundings, and making sure that your sense of your precepts, your virtue is intact, so that you don't have a bad conscience or disturbed mind about things. These are the two primary impediments to deep peace and serenity. So this is what you need to do. You go reestablish your virtue and withdraw from too much sensory experience so that you're left where you can go into the inner world away from the sensory experiences of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and endless flowing ideas. But you need to wind yourself down. You have to withdraw from that first, and then have no bad conscience. So those are the preliminaries.
Our next question is from the live feed from Jayant in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada. Dear Ajahn, I am curious about the interplay between an alert, sharp mind and a mind pervaded by metta. Can you comment on this?
Well, if your mind is pervaded by metta, it will be in a very alert and very actually intelligent mode. It is, you'll do your best thinking in a state of goodwill. So metta is no other than profound goodwill or friendliness or a sense of identity with other beings in the universe, saying, I am like them, they are like me, they don't like pain, they have their preferences, I do too, I am just like them. In fact, of course, we're all just products of the universe, aren't we? So that allows you to think in a very lucid way. You'll get your best attitudes to the world and other relationships through metta. So don't discount the power, and as a preliminary to even to enlightenment, metta can be a foundation to the experience of enlightenment. Once the metta is established, the primary impediment, which is ill will, is gone. And you are then on the doorstep of insight flooding in. You have a new view of things, and you can see that because your mind is freed from the negative emotions of ill will and is full of the positive emotion of goodwill. Okay. And perhaps just one more question.
Okay. Our final question for today is from the live feed from Enrique in Spain. Can you elaborate on mundane right view? How far could I go with it, and how different is it from the highest form of right view?
Mundane right view has some advice within it, and it is to do with your view of reality and some convictions that there is a point to life, there is a meaningful goal in life, that life is not merely bounded by mortality, that you have values which transcend mortality, that your relationships with other people in life are extremely important, especially your close family relationships, perhaps especially to your parents, etc. These are important mundane right view, and to have some confidence in these views and the teachings of the Buddha will utterly transform your emotional life. If you have those, life is a very different experience. And without that right view, it's very easy to fall into all kinds of problematic emotional conditions. Right view is transformative emotionally and intellectually. And so this is the mundane or worldly right view. And one of them is that charity, for instance, generosity, is a good thing and has good results for the giver. And that is not just some way of being manipulating society around you or gaining a reputation, or that there is no point in sharing or generosity. You're just giving away your things pointlessly. So these are an abandonment of that kind of view, where there is a conviction that charity is a wonderful thing, and that the positive emotions are restored to you and recovered by you. You get things back as well. So these are the kind of mundane things that utterly transform that. The higher ultimate kind of view is a release from the idea of virtually all kind of concepts of existence itself. A very difficult thing to communicate in 30 seconds, but this idea of ultimate nibbana, nirvana, is the ultimate right view. And how do you attain it? It is through right view of the ultimate nature of reality. So those are the two different views. Yeah. So we will end this with Pia. She's going to give you a little update on something there.
Thank you, Ajahn. I wanted to let everyone know that we will be having a new virtual retreat. The title of it is The Natural Elements in Meditation. It will be June 8th through June 13th, and a newsletter will be going out this week with more details. So I hope you will join us then. Thank you.